I was a big deal.
The big thing for Scott, he was always very athletic. Could jump like crazy. In fact, he got his first dunk in April of his 7th grade year.
Our point guard threw up an alley-oop and I dunked it in the game off a lob. And I remember in the bus ride back, we thought it was the coolest thing ever. And Channel 13 News played it on the news, so I was kind of a mini rock star for the day. I had my first offer when I was 16. I was going to camps and stuff my freshman year, and I had colleges talking to me and recruiting me when I was in 8th grade in my freshman year. But when I was 16, I knew the college was going to be free.
Probably as parents, you're not prepared for that. You don't really know what to expect. You kind of get caught up in the hype of it all and thinking this is really cool. You know, our kid's going to get to do some really neat things.
I was a small town kid in a big city. Being 18 and growing up on a small town farm and being from Iowa and living in a small farm community, New York just was a lifestyle that it was flashy. And the thought of being in New York and going to a big school and just playing big basketball and being on ESPN and the thought of going to an NCAA tournament, things like that were just awesome.
It was kind of a rough time for him that summer after graduation. In fact, when we moved him out there, he begged us not to leave him. And that's a hard call as a parent.
My girlfriend and I had just went through an abortion, and I had a lot on my mind with that. When I saw my dad cry before he got in the van and drove off, that kind of broke me, because they knew I didn't want to be there, and I knew that I didn't want to be there. But I had this pressure to live up to this lifestyle and image of being a basketball player. That was my identity. I was an addict. I remember the first night I was on campus, all the guys on the basketball team said that we were going to go to a party. And in high school, I never drank, I never did drugs. I stayed away from that stuff because that was going to hurt my basketball career. But when we went to that party, that's the first time I ever saw Coke laid out on the table. That's the first time that I ever saw bottles upon bottles of alcohol laid out on the table, and I gave into it. It's the first time I did Coke, first time I drank, and that just started a real downward spiral in my life. You set all these records and you go on to play Division I basketball on a scholarship, and I made it a week, and it just kind of all came crashing down because I felt my identity was Scott the basketball player. The drugs and the drinking, that stayed with me when I was at Quincy. It was easier to do those things because there wasn't as much pressure being a Division II basketball player. I didn't have to work quite as hard because the talent level wasn't quite as good as the players that were at the University at Albany. But there would be games where I'd be hungover playing. There would be games where I'd take a bump of Coke and play. My hungover game or my high game was still better than your sober game. On the exterior, everybody thought that I was fine. You know, Scott's making all these changes, he's meeting with his counselor, but I was still drinking 4 or 5 nights a week. And when I say drinking, I wasn't going to the bar and drinking, I was sitting in my dorm room and drinking a fifth. I was a criminal. Some people can have a bad experience and it's a wake-up call. Some people need a smack upside the head to wake them up. I needed to get hit with a truck. My alcohol addiction was bad enough that I started stealing it. And it was to the point where probably 4 or 5 times every 2 or 3 weeks I would walk into Walmart with a backpack, and I would fill up the backpack with alcohol, and I would walk out of the store because I was invincible. You know, nothing bad's gonna happen to a star basketball player. On the 14th, I walked into the store just like every other time. And I got to the door, and the loss prevention officer that was standing there said, "We caught you, we know what you're doing, don't do anything dumb." And I did something really stupid. I ran by him, and I'm a bigger guy. My shoulder hit him and bumped him, and he kind of fell to the ground, and I took off sprinting. Jumped about 3 fences, ran through a couple parking lots, and my buddy who was watching out for me picked me up in a Home Depot that was maybe 1.5 miles away. I got away. You know, once again, got away scot-free. It was one of the scariest experiences of my life. You know, I'm a bigger guy, but in there I was scared. There were guys in there that fought people. There were guys in there that stabbed people. There were about 30 men locked in one room. I was lost, but Jesus found me. My mom always told us, if any of you guys ever get arrested, don't waste your one phone call on me, because all you're gonna hear is a click.
First of all, your heart goes to the pit of your stomach, you know, when you know your kid is messed up and they're in trouble. You love them no matter what. No matter what they've done, you will never quit loving them.
And she told me, she said, "What's done is done. You have 2 options. You can either fix this problem, or you can always be remembered in Quincy as the guy who screwed up and couldn't fix it." I turned around by an email. I looked at my phone, and I had an email with a subject line saying, "You don't know me." I thought, well, that's weird. The email was sent by Ray Hyman. He's the director of campus ministry at Quincy University. Probably mid-60s, small guy. I'd seen him on campus a couple times, but I always blew him off when he tried to have a conversation. And I go to his office, and he told me that I was loved, that I was cared for, and that if I followed his advice, that he could teach me how to be a man. We had weekly meetings where we would sit down for lunch, and he taught me how to dress, he taught me how to talk, he taught me how to conduct myself in a professional manner, and he taught me that I'm not my mistakes. But the biggest thing that Ray taught me was that if I accepted Jesus into my life, and I found my identity in Christ, instead of basketball, instead of things, that my entire life would change. That baptism was special, and all of my basketball teammates were there to watch it. My parents were there to watch it. My brothers were there to watch it. And for the first time in my life, when I was raised up from that water, I felt like I wasn't Scott the basketball player. I wasn't Scott the athlete. I wasn't Scott the addict. I was Scott, follower of Christ. I am good enough.